How do you get kids interested in Shakespeare? By performing it. Twelfth Night at Sturgis Charter School, a combined production. With me today, Diana Young and Anna Botsford. This is just amazing. The Twelfth Night is one of my favorite plays. Before we get started, tell us who you are and which Sturgis you're at.
I am Diana Young. I teach theater in grades 9 through 12 at Sturgis East, and I'm also the director of S.T.A.G.E, which is our after-school program. It stands for Sturgis Theater Arts Guild of Entertainers, and I'm the arts programming coordinator at Sturgis East.
Great. And I'm Anna Botsford. I am the teacher at West for 9 through 12 theater. I am the director of S.T.A.G.E there, and I'm also the arts programming coordinator at West.
So Twelfth Night, it's a really cool play. Shakespeare, probably one of the funniest ones that I had read as a child. Tell us a little bit about the play. Don't give it away, but a little bit of what folks can expect from this play.
Sure. This is a tricky question to answer because part of the great thing about Twelfth Night is that it's a really complicated storyline, but it essentially stems from a shipwreck that separates two fraternal twins, Viola and Sebastian. Viola, thinking that her brother is dead, disguises herself as a man and goes into the city of Illyria to try and sort of resume her life that way. She ends up working for the Duke Orsino, who sends her on a mission to win the love of Lady Olivia, who does not love him at all. And through that mission, Olivia ends up falling in love with Viola, who she thinks is a man, and there is a lot of fun in terms of mistaken identity and unrequited love and all the stuff that comes along with that. And there are some other supporting storylines that add to sort of the chaos and the fun there as well.
So this is a combined theater production of the two schools. Tell us a little bit about getting this up and running. What's the tech situation? Do you guys do all your own technical?
Yes, we have an entire student tech crew with designers and technicians who do set design, costume design, makeup design, props design, sound and lighting, and then a whole crew that works on the construction and the development of all those aspects. So it's all pretty much student driven with guidance from Diana and myself to kind of, as I know Diana likes to say, get the palette of the show put together, which is really great. And we are setting this show in the 1980s. So a lot of those design aspects are working with researching the late 1980s. The color palette, you know, is neons and splatter paint, music design with a lot of the classic 80s songs, costume design, all, you know, fun 80s pieces put together, you know, leg warmers and scrunchies and all that kind of stuff. So it's going to be a really fun visual experience for the audience.
Great. So let's talk a little bit about Shakespeare and the importance of it in the classroom. As a young adult, I think reading it was somewhat dry. It was hard to read. The language is tough. What does it give a student when you're performing Shakespeare? What's the difference between reading and performing Shakespeare?
Well, performing Shakespeare, you're putting it on its feet. You're getting it in your body. You're becoming the words rather than just reading them on a piece of paper. And I find that when kids are able to embody what they're saying, they're much better able to understand what they're saying. If you want to add on to that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we spend a lot of time within our rehearsals kind of diving into the language and making sure everybody understands what they're saying. There's a lot of great resources out there. We use a lot of No Fear Shakespeare to sort of link up with a modern translation so that the students know, okay, you know, like what's the subtext of what I'm saying? What do I really mean here? Before we get it up on its feet and really activate it. So I think it's just like another level of understanding cognitively as well as physically and embodying it.
Right. And the other piece of Shakespeare is there's a lot of messages that are timeless. Talk a little bit about the learning Shakespeare and what those lessons learned bring to children's lives.
So I think it's different for every show, but I think the reason that Shakespeare is still performed and still read and studied today is because the overall meanings and the messages and the themes are still applicable to us. Shakespeare really just wrote about being human, and so we can identify with things like unrequited love in Twelfth Night, or things like jealousy and ambition that you see in some of the other plays. So I think because all of those themes and ideas are really still relevant to everybody's lives now and always will be, I think there's always a part of us that will be able to relate to what we're seeing on stage.
That's fantastic. What are some of the challenges of combining the two schools for a production? It seems like that, I mean, you guys are separate schools, so this combination, between kids' schedules and things like that. What are some of those challenges?
There's a lot of kids, and so that's just dealing with a lot of different people's schedules. We also really like to be inclusive and have students be able to do sports and theater, so kind of dealing with sports schedules and our theater rehearsal schedules. We also meet only at West for our rehearsals just because the space itself lends itself to having more room for all the kids, and so getting the East kids over to West. So it's a lot more like logistical stuff is the main challenge, but overall I find it less challenging and more rewarding because the kids really get to work together and become friends with each other. It's one of the only programs at Sturgis where East and West work together rather than, as in sports, they're playing against each other. We're actually coming together and working as a whole, which is great.
Excellent. And I have this one question as well, that when you were looking at that 80s, that just kind of triggered this question is, like you said, some of Shakespeare's messages and things that he's written about are timeless. How do you translate that to the 80s? It seems like really cool. Give me a kind of how that happened.
So I think just to start with the beginning of the play, there's a lot of research into, aside from the fact that we wanted it to look and be really loud and fun in like the 80s sort of fashion and style and pop culture, we also looked at, what was going on in the 80s at that time, and we really, I think, latched onto the idea of like female empowerment and making different choices and dressing differently, and like we thought the question that is always asked is, why does Viola disguise herself as a man? And that's like kind of what starts the whole play. And so our thought with this character is that she came from a really wealthy sort of yuppie upbringing, and maybe at the beginning our shipwreck starts as a graduation party for Viola and Sebastian. And so we thought, and we worked a lot with the actress who's playing Viola, thinking about maybe Sebastian is going off and doing all of these things and following his dreams, and she just has this expected path that she's supposed to follow, but because this event has happened, she gets another chance to like forge her own path. And so we kind of latched onto that in
like
terms
experimentation with identity. Was a lot of what was going on with the young people in the 80s, and so we were sort of playing with how do you experiment with your identity in different ways. So that's
a
connection.
Great way to look at that. I hadn't even, when you started to explain, I said that's fantastic. I love it. So tell us, when can we see this?
Yeah, you can see this show at the Cape Cod Community College Tilden Arts Center on November 9th, 10th, and 11th. On the Friday and Saturday, there is a 7 o'clock show, and on the Saturday and Sunday, there's a 2 o'clock show.
Wow, that's a lot of performances.
Yeah.
Are the kids ready?
They are.
I think they are.
Yeah.
Next week is going to be really important for us to put it all together, but
we're
they're
in
in
a
good
good
shape.
Excellent. Anything else you want folks to know about the play or Sturgis?
If you want tickets to see the play, you just show up at the door on the day of the performance. So it is $5 for students of any school and $10 for general admission.
Fantastic. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.